Good evening and welcome to the February 27th meeting of the Murfreesboro City School Board. We're glad to have those of you that are with us here, and we're glad to have those that are watching home on television at the same time. We're a little late getting started tonight. We've had some board members that had other obligations, but we are getting ready to roll right now. At this time, I'm going to ask you to stand. We have three young people today to lead us in our pledge. Jonathan Warner, a sixth grader from Overall Creek. Mariah Nolan, a fifth grade student from Reeves Rogers. Amante Cooper, a third grade student from Reeves Rogers. Following our pledge, I'd like, during our moment of silence, if you will remember, please, Collier Smith, a board member whose father passed away this week. Also, David Settle's wife, who had surgery this afternoon. And a longtime educator in Murfreesboro, Stan Baskin, who passed away today after a valiant battle with cancer. Services for Stan will be Saturday, visitation 1 to 4 at Third Baptist Church, and services to follow at 4. I ask you to remember those, please, during our moment of silence. But now, our pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now our moment of silence. Thank you. All right, members of the board, you have the agenda in front of you. You have seen previously, and I hope you've had time to study that. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. King. Any question or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposition? And there is none. Thank you. Consent items. I'm sorry, communications first.
Good evening, Board. I want to start off with congratulating Dee Dee Potter. She's an art teacher at Hobgood. She has been appointed to the Cheekwood Teacher Advisory Council. We'd also like to say congratulations to the following students for awards received at the Invention Convention this past week. It was held at MTSU on Thursday. So I'm going to read you a list of folks from Northfield Elementary. Judge's favorite for 5th grade, Making Life Easier, On the Go Cleaner, Sarah Chavis, Kinsley Coons, and Reagan Warren. Also, congratulations to Northfield for advancing on to nationals. If you remember, we also had a couple of teams last year to advance on to nationals. So, Discovery School, the individual champion for 4th grade invention category was Jana Baloo. Second place winner for the regional in the 5th grade invention category is Ada Vance and Charlotte Cushingham. Irma Siegel Elementary, the judge's favorite was Harrison Zolt, Carson Pack, and Austin Bragg. Group champion, Seth Nobles and Trance Houston. First place in 5th grade games, Avery Evans, Leanna Lewis, and Lane Marlett. The following groups from Siegel also won a spot in the National Invention Convention that will be held this summer at the Henry Ford Museum. It'll be Arabella Black, Kim Gambrill, Grace White, Avery Evans, Leanna Lewis, Lane Marlett, Reese Matthews, Melanie Ordonez, and Jack Pensek. For Overall Creek, first place Making Life Easier for 6th grade is Jonathan Warner. 4th grade group award, Odessa Chabot, Savannah Merritt, and Hazel Soupe. Best presentation for 4th grade is Ethan DeBeb. Hobgood Elementary, 6th grade best presentation was Sophia Boyd. And John Pittard Elementary, 3rd place for 6th grade games, Matthew Jones, Zavion Sneed, and Blake Brown. As you can tell, we had quite the turnout for Invention Convention this year. It was an amazing day. I want to say thank you to Mr. Phil King for being one of the judges. although I'm sure he didn't judge in any of our categories. Also, Miss Krista Campbell served as a national judge for the Invention Convention. So it was quite a display of wonderful ideas presented by groups of students that really have put a lot of thought and hard work into this. So that would be my announcements.
Thank you, ma'am, very much. Appreciate that. Good report. Consent items. Have a motion to approve the consent items.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Ballard. Have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. King. Any discussion or question?
Are the field trips on there?
Yes.
I don't see anything there. Yes, they should be.
Yeah.
Okay, no question.
Question?
On field trips,
Yes, ma'am.
looking at the list of field trips, we have a variation, and I know, Mr. Anderson, I tried to get you today, and if you've written me back, I haven't seen it. I'm sorry, let me pull it up and make it bigger so I can see it. Because all of the schools will be practicing for the concert. There's a difference between $2 and $10 for their transportation. And I know the $10 one includes a T-shirt, so I certainly understand that. But I think we, as the board, should be paying for it. I don't think the children should have to pay their transportation to get to whatever it was, Cason Lane, yeah, to Cason Lane, when we're asking them to do this. I don't know if we have enough money or not.
That would be up to the board if you choose to be paying for those type of activities. It's your choice. We haven't budgeted for that because typically any field trip is paid for by the school fund.
I understand that, but to me, this is not a field trip. This is a practice of something that we've asked them to do.
Again, that's up to the will of the board.
Would you just kind of hit the highlights and explain what this is, what they're going to be doing, why we've asked them to do this?
They have their music program where they all come together.
Okay.
Instead of being at Segal, it's at Cason Lane this year. And looks like they're all going in for a practice. And I don't think it tells the date, it just says March. So if they're all going, are they all going to be together?
Yes.
So I think that we are asking them to do this. It's just a thought. I don't know what anybody else
Have
thinks.
they, my question, have they did that before? I mean, what do we do in the past? Did they get together like this, or they just showed up Saturday and did the?
No, it's been during the week. Gary, is this,
We haven't paid for it before. They've done it on their own, and the price differences will depend on number of students going and the distance traveled. And it's usually, like you said, $1 or $2 difference.
Right.
The one that's $10, it's because they have a $7 T-shirt involved
Right.
with it.
I don't remember this coming up on a field trip before. That's just my thought.
I can look back. I don't remember each individual report.
So it says the variance is due to meal cost. So is it meal cost or is it transportation?
Sometimes they have like a pizza party or something there for the kids after their practices.
Yeah.
The bus transportation costs, as you can see, that the MCS is the bus and that the parents are paying for the meal.
What day is the practice? Does anybody know?
Lisa, do you remember the date? Okay.
Next Friday.
Typically, what they do is practice on the day of the concert.
They usually just get there earlier than the concert.
Yeah, I don't think we've done a field trip
Let me
before.
see.
Pretty sure it's March 9th. It is March 9th.
Well,
So it's Friday at 6 p.m. March 9th.
So the practice is the same day.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, that's what they've done in the past.
Okay.
All right, so they're going to Cason Lane to practice, and that same night is the concert,
Performance.
right? The performance. All right.
And they feed them I think it's a pizza party in between practice and the time of the performance.
Oh, so they just stay there?
Yes. I believe they do, don't they, Dr. Gilbert?
That's what they've done in the past, yes. I've not been communicating with them this year, but I'm assuming that it's the same.
Okay.
I haven't asked them for details this year.
And, excuse me, but that's, transportation means that that's the bus fee? To have the buses on the road for that, yeah.
Right.
Mr. King?
Is being in the choral, is this a choice for the student to be in it, and other children have chosen not to be? Thus the reason it would not be paid for by us, because the student chose to do this. This is a part
And I'm
of it.
fine with the board. I was looking to see if I could find any information in the past, because I didn't know this was going to come up tonight. Yes, they did pay for it last year,
They do.
I'm
Who-
trying
who
to find
did?
it.
the individual schools.
Individual schools did.
But I'm fine with the board paying for that if you want to. I think that my only question would be, are there other events like this that we would have? This was initiated by the music teachers, and it's certainly something that's great for Murfreesboro. I mean, it's certainly something that we appreciate they're doing. I don't know, Gary, if there are other things like this during the year.
Well, there's some we do already that the system does pay for the transportation, like for the
Okay.
house build, the bus, we're paying for that.
Okay,
The big field trip over to MTSU,
MTSU,
the basketball game,
right.
we're paying for that. So there's other ones we do pay for.
Buses to, from Bradley to the Center for the Arts, do they pay for that, or do we?
During that's the after school, and I'm not sure about that one. It's after school or during school? I'm not sure.
Well, I think what we've
can
got to
find out.
remember and determine is, are we going to, and I don't have a problem, but are we going to start a precedent? Are we're going to, if we do this, then are we going to do Special Olympics? Are we going to do other activities that come along throughout the school year?
And that was my concern too, is we're going to set a precedent. Which one are we going to pick and choose? Are we going to pick these and exclude others? So if they did it the same last year, I'm fine with however it's set up this year, like they did it last year.
I think if the board wanted, it's something that we could get together a list of, and during budget discussion, discuss it if that's what you chose to do. I don't have a problem with the board doing it. I think if we're going to do it, we need to do it consistently with.
Well, I don't want to start anything
All
crazy,
others,
but I wasn't thinking about the Special Olympics. I didn't realize the kids paid to go to Special Olympics.
And I don't know whether is that MTSU? Okay, thank you.
And
Okay, and Special Olympics, okay, good.
What other activities might there be where we have be a similar situation to this?
The
Off the
Bradley-
cuff, I don't know. I would have to research that. I mean, that's something, I know we know, but just to pull it out of my
The
head tonight,
trip to MTSU for Farm Day,
that's right.
that's another big one
Oh, yeah.
that we do. We would have to get together and just look at all the different ones and decide which ones are major, like you're saying, if multiple schools going one place. We can pull that information for you if you'd like.
I don't want to make any more work for you. This just hit me.
Well, I don't have a problem with this, but I would like for us, I'm like Mr. Barrett, I'd like for us to look at it perhaps during budget time and get an idea rather than doing something in the middle of a stream as we're paddling.
The will of the board, whatever you want.
And this may be the only thing, I just don't know. If I'd known a couple of days ago, we certainly could have pulled it out. But I just, off the top of my head tonight,
The
I don't.
reason you didn't know is
Okay.
because I've been hacked and I couldn't send or receive
Okay.
mail. And I was afraid to if I could, because
Yeah.
I didn't want to infect everybody else. So I waited till
Okay.
I could get to the iGeek place, and they fixed me up.
Good.
Okay, any other, Mr. King?
Just kind of put it in perspective a little bit. If my math is right, there are 241 students for this. If my math is right, we're looking at about $788, because some of them are $3, some are $5, and 30 of them are $2. So 241 students, but we go down, and 401 are going to go to see the kids perform the Bradley kids perform Annie, which is almost double. But then a couple of lines down, 119 kids from Irma Siegel, almost half, are going to go to the Center for the Arts. And then we go on down some more, and we got John Pitter, we got 130, again, half, paying more, almost double, to go to the Parthenon in Nashville. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, which one, I guess going back to which ones would the board pay for, which ones for so that the kids raise money for, the parents pay for. You know, if we start doing this, again, it's a precedence for that or what have you. So we've got several large groups here just in the month of March alone, and you go down at the bottom, 138 kids or 139 kids. So,
In my mind, the things that we did as a field trip was the learning experience, and parents paid for those. And of course, like we said, everything's different depending on the number of students, the number of miles. There's a formula, and you have to figure all that out, unless it's changed somewhat since I've retired. But when I'm thinking that all of these students are going to one place, to me, that's not a field trip. Now, if within their $3, $2 goes for food for pizza or something, why couldn't we, my thought was maybe we could pay the bus transportation. If this is also including lunch, they could pay for their own lunch.
I'll just add a comment that I think is reasonable. Ms. Rainier's input on this is very, I think we should find a way to do it. We don't have the budget right now, perhaps, even though it's just $700, but as Dr. Gilbert suggested and you, Mr. Chairman, I think it's excellent to bring this up in the budgeting process as we go into that and just earmark some things and say, okay, this is perceived to be a school-wide event, and if it has a school-wide event, maybe we should be, you know, asking those people to come to that event and paying the way for it.
Sounds good.
Mr. Anderson, do schools receive money through the budget process?
From which process?
I guess what I'm asking is, do schools receive money that they can use for this type of activity?
Not from our budget, no, sir.
Okay.
No, it has to be based on school funds or PTO funds or funds that they raise or a grant of some form or fashion, like Mr. Marlin said, where MTSU paid for it.
Okay. I kind of get the drift that the idea is to look at this when we come to budget in April for next year, but for this year, leave it as is. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah.
Yes, I support that.
Okay. All right, any other questions on field trips?
We need to approve the consent items.
Okay, so then I need a motion to approve the consent items.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ballard. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And there is none. Thank you. All right, second reading of board policies. Do we need to take these individually, perhaps?
Yes.
Wasn't it under consent?
Consent agenda.
Ma'am?
They were on the
They were
consent
under the
agenda.
consent agenda.
Oh, so we just did that?
Yes, we did.
Why did you have a question?
Yeah, I think there was only one that, the first one was going to be adjusted, or one of them was going to get some verbiage adjustment.
Right. We had, you asked for, there was actually two. The first one was the first policy, the 3.100, And we had, where it was talking about provide a student transportation system, we had meet or exceeds. And then we also added to use local vendors whenever possible. The other one was in 3.200 with buildings and grounds management, where it was the director of schools or designee. And those corrections were made.
In 3.200, line 10, repairs, including repairs of equipment and painting, and does that "and" need to be there? Or does that "and" go with line 11?
It links into number 4.
Okay, all right. On,
You're right, frankly, that could, well, we'll leave it.
on policy 6308, I think I had these questions, but last time we were having computer problems.
Yes.
Line 8 and 9. The principal of the student transported shall be informed by the bus driver of any serious discipline problem and may be called upon to assist if necessary. When would the principal not be called upon to assist in a discipline problem on the bus?
This is the intent of this part of the policy, I believe, is if there's something going on in the bus and the bus pulls up to the school and they ask the principal to come out. If it's something that's a disciplinary action, then a write-up is given to them. So I think, there's two different ways to look at it. One is if it's right there on site, the principal would be called, and if not, the student, the form is filled out by the bus driver. If there's some kind of issue, it then goes to transportation supervisor, who then sends it out to the principals.
Okay, all right, thank you. And 6310, dress code, every school has their own, basically.
That's what we talked about last
It's
time.
not,
They do, and that's something that we've talked with principals about, and we'll be trying to get some consistency with some things. There's a real need to do that, but you'll still have the individual.
okay. All right, any other questions on the policies? Ms. Renier?
On,
We've already
I
approved.
know we've approved it. On 3.200, it seems kind of funny to me, and I don't have it pulled up right at this minute. Let me see if I can get it real fast, because I saved it at the bottom, where it says leave the, something about leaves the building in a pleasant condition. Oh, that's the wrong one. 6308. I'm sorry, hold on.
Yeah,
Building and grounds, line 14, 13, 14. You're overseeing the operation that we leave it in a clean, healthy, and pleasant condition. Does that seem too elemental? Is there some other word besides pleasant? I don't know. If not, that's okay, no big deal.
I'm good with pleasant. I don't know that, what you may be thinking of pleasant odor, smell, or whatever,
Right,
but
that's what I'm thinking of.
pleasant condition may also be clean and orderly and things along that line. More so than just whether it has a nice aroma to it.
Right. Another one that, of course, mine doesn't work like yours does, pulling it up, but on 3.300, lines 3 through 6, I wondered if we could put this in plain English, because it kind of got me confused. It's a long, unless I'm thinking of the wrong one, it seemed like it was a long sentence, and basically what it was saying is the staff is responsible even when they're not present. Let's suppose there's a substitute in a classroom and a child decides to throw a computer. The teacher who's home sick is responsible for it, the way it's written.
Well, it says employees of the system. It doesn't designate the teacher.
Okay, well, there you go.
And I think that would be, Ms. Renier, when it's talking about not under the direct control, there is an understanding that if an employee sees a child doing something, even though there may not be a teacher around or someone else around, that
You could correct someone else's child? Okay. Thank you for the
I
clarification.
really think that's,
Okay.
Any other questions or comments on policies? All right. Action items, open and closed zone school recommendation.
This board, you have in your packet the recommendations for the open and closed zone schools for the 2018-2019 school year. These are the same schools as last year. When we do build our next new school, all of this will change. Well, not all, but a good portion of it will change. But this is the same as we had this past year. And we went and I gave a better explanation so everyone would understand what an open and closed zone school is, and controlled choice and testing school. I just went and gave a little more explanation for that so everyone would understand what they were. So what we're asking for is that you vote to approve these zone schools as we've designated them on this sheet.
Mr. Ballard?
Do we get any pushback on this?
Well, if people want to go to the school they want to go to, and sometimes based on capacity issues like at Overall Creek or at Scales or at Cason where they're at capacity now, they're not happy that they don't get to choose to go there, but we just don't have the capacity to handle it. Other than that, we really haven't had much issues with it. We are seeing some growth in the areas of Cason Lane and Scales and Overall Creek. That's quite a bit, and we're seeing a new growth pattern up at Irma Siegel that we hadn't seen just 2 years ago.
So those closed zone schools would be good Exhibit A for, at least Exhibit A, B, or C for our meeting with the City Council on the 8th. To have them fully absorb the idea that get their help, because we've got people that want to get in those schools and can't get in them, or they can't go to the school that's not built yet. So we've got to build that school.
Right now, there's 513 lots already have been approved by the city. They have not pulled permits on those, but we know that they've been approved to be built. And what I mentioned earlier, Irma Siegel has 124 of those lots in that zone. In the past, we have not had that many. So that one makes me that much more cautious with that particular school. Overall Creek has 224 lots already approved, and Scales right now has 72 individual lots approved, and then it varies with the other ones. But those are the main critical areas that we're worried about.
And these are single-family residential.
Yes, sir.
Which says nothing about all the apartment complexes.
No, not in that report, no.
They're everywhere.
Any questions from anyone?
I move that we accept these recommendations.
Thank you, Ms. Renier. To have a second to the motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And there is none. Thank you. All right, reports and information.
you have the personnel report before you. If you have any questions about that, please see Mr. Ringstaff. And the other report that you have is your revenue and expenditure report.
And on the expenditure report, we are in the black. We're at $2,384,000 since property taxes are starting to flow in now. This particular report runs through January, end of January. And remember, property taxes are not due in until the end of February, so we still have another month of collections on property taxes. And this is at the 58.3% of the year, so we use that as our basic benchmark. The property tax collection is up $300,000 over this time last year, which is good news. And the sales tax is up $200,000 over last year at this time, which is also good news for us. We're at 55.6% of revenue collected, which is up 0.2%. That's not a tremendous amount, but we still have the month of February to go and collect those. And we still have some additional growth money that we will not receiving until the very end of the year, not until June. But we did receive some, which helped offset some of this. On the expenditure side, we're at 50.8%. Last year we had 49.5%. A lot of this, again, is timing on purchases of major items and on things about reimbursements. One of the things that I think a lot of people don't understand is when we get the federal funds from Title and IDA, we have to spend the money first, and then they reimburse us. And there's some things in this that we carried on the report until we are reimbursed from the federal side. For example, one of our people who does the accounting for this, for the federal and federal expenses, we pay them out of our fund in the fiscal services, and then we get reimbursed, so it comes out of it later. So that's why we always have to worry about making sure we have the cash flow to handle paying for those federal things up front. And so that's why there's a slight variance in some of those accounts every time. But I don't think a lot of people don't realize we got to pay for it first before we get it back.
All right, any question on the revenue, Mr. Ballard? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Did you-
Wes?
The, Mr. Anderson, the line 21, operating transfers on the expenditures. Can you just
Yes, sir.
refresh me on what operating, I mean, I know what operating transfers are. I think that means that we need to move buckets of money around. And
Right.
so is operating transfers actually a budgeted bucket?
Yes, it is, because that's money we send back to the city for when the energy efficiency grants. All of those come into there, the computers that we purchased, that money we have to reimburse them back. So we have to have an expense account to do that. And so that's why it's here. So they paid for the energy efficiency grants, and we have to reimburse them on a monthly basis. So basically that's, we get a long-term benefit from that.
So that's not a, say, moving bucket to the transportation side or?
No,
moving-
sir. No.
It's
No,
paid
it's,
back.
right. No, to move buckets like that, we have to get y'all to approve it when we move it around like that.
Well, that's, okay, well, you perfectly explained it. When I read it, I thought, well, that's a budget item for another bucket.
Yeah, well, that's Dr.
That would be
Gilbert's
really
petty
interesting
cash
if we did
fund.
that. Mr. Anderson would say no to me so fast, it wouldn't even.
We can always use another bucket of money, can't we, Gary?
We can't even move shells, much less.
Mr. King?
Just a quick question about the sales tax. The report's dated January. Is this the sales tax revenue that we generated in the month of December, or was this for the month of January?
Depends on the timing of when we received it.
Okay.
I would have to go back and look at previous years, but I'm assuming it's in line with the one before that. So it's probably the January information. We get it on like February 20th. So I'm assuming that was included because we just turned this report over.
Well, if this is January, to me, that's a pretty good number coming straight out of the Christmas season. 200,000 is a strong number. I think it is.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Mr. Anderson? Any other business to come before the board?
I had
Barrett?
one. I'm not going to be here next week for the joint meeting we're going to have with the city council, so I wanted to get my thoughts out or maybe even have a discussion before that. I'm going to be in Kansas for work, so I just wanted to say, I was looking at this map tonight that was on the back of this community report, and I see 3 dots here on the west side. We really need that school. We need another dot east of Veterans Parkway and south of Highway 99. If we put it anywhere, I've heard Rockville mentioned. If that's mentioned, we can't do that, and I wouldn't be able to support that as a board member if it comes before us. So I'm in favor of trying to get it as close to that fire station. There's the new one out there, Fire Station 10. It's possible, and I would be in favor of that. But I just want to get my thoughts out there since I am not going to be there, and it's such a big decision. I'm unfortunately won't have, like I said, work is taking me out of state, but just wanted to get that out there for everybody.
Well,
Mr. King?
I'm like you. I'll be gone next week too. Little anecdotal story, if y'all don't mind. I work for UPS, and mid to late December, a truck rolled in, and we said, hey, help us unload this truck. And we unloaded packages, and we were sorting them by zip code. And we had a small stack, that would fit on this tabletop for the 129 zip code. And we had another stack for the 130 zip code. but we had a stack that was 6 times as big as this and would go to the floor, and that was 128. In other words, the west side of town. And I wish I'd taken a photograph because it showed where the people are, you know, and where these deliveries were going. And it was a stark reminder of, you know, just black and white evidence of where the people are that in town, about how much that is and where it's needed.
Okay. Good. I think we all realize that too. And my status for next Thursday is slim unless I can make some major changes. But all right, Mr. Shacklet, you have heard our concern.
And he knows. He does a
He
good
knows.
job. We're not, we never want to put him on the house.
Well, I think that the city council understands that, don't you?
They need to hear this from you guys. I mean, that was after lots of discussion the other night, and I think it's important that they hear it from the school board, that you are prepared to make this decision, but the council needs to offer some help and assistance in how we're going to fund these significant investments and move it forward, not just one, but two. They need to hear this crisis that we're in, and I'm afraid that, you know, we just need to, this is the opportunity for that to happen at a joint meeting.
What time is that meeting scheduled for?
I think it's 5.
Uh,
I believe it's 5.
Okay, guys.
I think Parks and Rec is 4:30, and I believe we may be at 5:30, Wes.
Okay. All right, Mr. King.
One more point, you know, Jared, you brought up, you know, the community report.
Mm-hmm.
You know, take look on the very back above the map and look at the year the school was built. Mitchell Nelson, 1952. Bradley, 1955. Reeves Rogers, 1958. Hobgood, 1954. So in the 50s, we're building a school every 2 or 3 years. Mitchell Nelson, 1964, where it got renovated or added on. And I've actually looked at this, and I think Mitchell Nelson in 1964, then we didn't build another school for 23 years until 1987. And I tell people who grew up here and lived here, what happened in Murfreesboro? What didn't happen? That we didn't build a school for 23 years.
No growth.
And now, here we start in 1987, and we start building on average. So this is not new. It's just that what was the strange thing was Murfreesboro didn't grow. And now we're back to what we were doing in the 1950s. So this is, like I said, this is not new for us. But for some folks, you know, they may think it is. So we're back to where we were in the 1950s.
Well, I think during that time that you're talking about where the city did not, but the county was.
Right, but
then people started merging into city limits, or more property was incorporated in city limits, and therefore it has caused our schools to boom and to explode, and people are coming here, and that's the reason why, part of it.
The meeting is at 5:30.
Okay.
5:30.
Thank you.
Okay.
On
Will
March
that be
8th.
here?
It's here, right.
Okay.
I think another thing that we could throw out with those large numbers on the west side, at these 2 schools already over capacity, that dreaded word portables, because nobody likes portables, and we're gonna have to put children somewhere. So, you know, I think if we have the documentation, this is a great pamphlet, I think that they'll be interested to see it.
Timely pamphlet.
I think today, with the concern for safety and just the fact that portables
Right.
are portables,
Right.
I'd almost rather just get a fleet of buses and rent them and run around on field trips until we can.
I thought you were going to have classrooms on the bus.
Well, that exactly.
You might be able to find a couple of classrooms up somewhere, and we'll transport them.
There you go.
Okay. Anything else? No other business coming before the board? Thank you. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Good night.